Everyone says they represent community, but who do they actually show up for?
In San Francisco politics, it's easy to run on identity, to say you look like the community, or that you care because you came from it. But representation is more than a face, it's a fight. It's not what boxes you can check off, it's who you bring alongside you when you rise.
This episode is about representation, the real kind, who earns it, who claims it, and who actually delivers for the people they say they serve.
This is Between the Fog and Fury, a podcast about San Francisco politics from an Asian American perspective. I'm your host, Natalie G., also known as your favorite policy nerd.
I'm Michael Wynn. I'm an elected member of the DCCC, aka Juicy Lou, drag activist.
And I'm Jeremy Lee, Chinatown advocate, and also housing advocate too.
Oh my gosh, how are y'all doing?
Good. I'm sorry I can't join you guys in person again.
I know, we miss you.
Next
You're
time,
so
next
gonna
time.
eat the
Still in the ether.
Self-care is important, Natalie. So
Yes. Thank you, thank you.
It's so important. Well, we're doing representation. What does it all really mean? I want to know, Natalie. What does representation mean to you?
It's like who's representing you as an elected, right? Do you see yourselves in these folks? Are they, for us, are they Asian American? Maybe it's, are they queer? Do they have a disability? Do they have an aspect that you can identify with?
Yeah, I think I mean in previous episodes I wore a Hawaiian shirt. I'm not Hawaiian, but I might look like one. And I really feel like as Asian Americans we need to also lift up the voices of Native Hawaiians and Pacific Islanders, the ANHPI community. And also whenever I walk into spaces, I really do ask, like, so how are you gonna uplift Pacific Islander representation here in this conversation? Maybe we need to have an interview with Native Hawaiian, for example, because as Natalie was saying, they have different lived experiences. They experience the most poverty. At least in San Francisco, like literacy, everything's is bad. It's not great. And if we really represent AAPI or ANHPI, we'd have to be uh, bringing in those people to conversation and trying to center those marginalized voices.
yeah, for me, I think at a kind of higher level, representation really means caring about something greater than yourself. When it's not about you, it's about the people you represent. It's about the low income seniors, the immigrants struggling to make it in this country, the kids who will inherit this district, this city when they become older. So really, just like it's not about you anymore. It's about the 80 or so thousand people that you represent as supervisor, or the all the children in San Francisco if you're on the board of education, or all of the people trying to rebuild their careers or get an education if you're on the city college argument.
That's right. So this episode is all about representation, maybe not just demographics, but more relational and like political. Politics is all about relationships and accountability, not just proximity, not just identity-based politics, not just identity politics, but building coalition and the ability to move people, to bring people into your coalition and to listen to each other and they have such a joy in the coalition making. um, Natalie, I want to start with you. We in our last episode we talked a lot about the races that are coming up in 2026 and specifically board of supervisors. But you know, from a representation lens, why should people care about who represents them in City Hall?
Yeah, and you're not just asking me this because I work for a supervisor, right?
Well, you have a up to point of view that not many people have.
Yeah, yeah. I think, people should care about who's on the board because they are going to be the ones who uplift your interests or uplift your voice in community at the decision-making level. And it could be deciding on what policies are placed on the ballot or what policies are passed. Maybe it's like increasing your taxes or um, giving either businesses some tax breaks, things like that. So it's a lot of policy, that is behind the scenes. It can be very boring things, but here we're trying to make them not so boring so people understand. For day-to-day things, it could affect people's transit options. It could affect what muni lines are getting cut. It can affect what restaurants are opening in your neighborhood. A lot of different things other than policy and constituent stuff.
Yeah, I think what you're getting at, Natalie, is what does a supervisor value? And who do they hold themselves accountable to?
Yes.
And so when we say they represent us, well, who is us? Who's the people they are representing?
Yes.
And and what kind of fighter do you have in the room that's going to speak on behalf of the interests of the supervisor, the that district, right? Um, so that's the kind of person. Those are the kind of questions, and it's not easy, right? There may
It's hard to be a politician. It's hard to run when you're a candidate. All you're thinking about, at least in the beginning, is how am I going to fund this? You're constantly thinking like, hey, how like the people are just dying for dollars, or if you're someone who wants to take the easy way out, you can just say like, hey, I'm just gonna show some preference towards tech because they have a lot of money, and if I cozy up to them, then I don't have to work as hard on funding myself. I can just focus on talking to voters or getting my message out. But on the flip side is if Jeff Bezos or Mark Zuckerberg or Peter Thiel and Gary Ethan, if they give you a phone call, you better pick up.
Yeah, it's like who fundraises for you is also who you are accountable to. And so in San Francisco, I think there is something called a public financing program. So if candidates choose to use this program, the city provides matching dollars for a certain amount of money that you fundraise. You have to fundraise from people who live in the city, and that money gets multiplied through this public financing program so that you can have more money to leverage, and you're not just funded by wealthy people.
Yeah, it's a 6-to-1 match. So for every $100, you get $600 from the city. But it also means that you have to abide by restrictions on campaign spending and also fundraising. So it kind of kneecaps you on both ends.
Yeah, it's complicated. Go find a treasurer. But I guess what advice would you give folks who want to represent community and are maybe running this cycle coming up in 2026, that are trying to meet the moment that we're in?
I think I would first say like approach it with humility. That you might be someone who is extremely passionate, who really wants to see change, but you might not have the experience working in community. You might not have experience working with low income people, with seniors, with immigrants. And I really think you need to get on the ground level first. I think that there's a lot of voices that say, "Oh, go run for office, run for office." And I'm not trying to hamper that at all, but you also want to ground yourself in community, ground yourself in people, because in San Francisco, there's so many money forces, there's so many powerful forces out there. It's so easy to lose your way as a politician. It's so easy to get swayed by the power struggles and the fights, questioning your values and morals about like, oh, can I bend a little here? Can I look past this? Can I sweep this under the rug? When you're rooted deeply in community, your values are strong. You know that working class families truly matter, that you don't want to disappoint them because you've worked with them. You've seen the struggles that SRO families make, trying to work as a dishwasher and a housekeeper while uh, caring for 2 kids and living in a small 10 by 10 room with no private bathroom.
I think, someone who wants to run, it's just, you don't just show up during election season. You're showing up when you're not running for something. You take the time to build trust with people who live in that community. You take the time to learn about the policy and just stay and have those hard conversations with people. I think, you know, we're, we try to look for people who are not career chasers, who are not using this as a stepping stone to get into higher office, people who are consistently just rooted in community, like what Jeremy said, and have principles and value those principles, that they don't necessarily bend to special interests.
Yeah, I think what I'm hearing in both of your responses to my hard question about advice about representation and reading the moment is really focusing on the why. Like, why is this candidate running? What have they done? What have they delivered on? What anything have they done in for the community? Um, kind of how do they show up in community actually, and do they have been build coalition? How they had experience building coalition? And let's talk about coalition building for a second. Um, Coalition building to me is like maybe talking with people and bring people into a conversation that you may be completely different from ideologically, identity based wise. You had different lived experiences, but you are sharing a common goal. I think one of them, for example, could be how do we prevent people from disappearing our immigrants from ICE, and people in labor, people in queer spaces, people in elected office. Like that is coalition building, and it's hard to do, and it takes time because there might be no trust sometimes, and some communication mishaps. But I'm curious to hear from both of you about coalition building. Like, how do you see the coalition builders out there?
So in terms of coalition building, I first want to put a little bit of cold water and have a bit of real talk about, you as an individual person can't do alone. Let's just face it. Like a lot of people say one person can change the world. And of course, one person has the capacity to bring people together in coalition and create monumental change. If you bring queer folks, if you bring the Latino community, if you bring renters, if you bring seniors, if you can find a way to appeal to all of these people, then can have some weight behind the demands that you make of city hall, of your supervisor. So it's really focusing on building the connections with different people and not just thinking, what can I do? It's about what can we all do? How can you bring everyone into the fold and go about making change?
I agree with Jeremy. I think coalition building is building power, is building relationships on top of that. It's also empowering people to also come out and advocate for things. So it's not just one person doing it. It's not just showing up for press conferences. It's there for the late night meetings, organizing policy negotiations with different electeds, or even just like simple one-on-ones to get to know people to bring them into that coalition because you value their opinion and their voice, and you want to also help uplift a collective voice. It's also trying to be more strategic on how to create change. Because again, one person, you might just be one person, you don't have that big of a voice. But if there's like 100, 1,000 people or more who have the same goals, trying to advocate on these goals is way more powerful.
Yeah, I'm gonna push back just a little bit on Jeremy's thought that one person can't do the world, and not because I have main character energy, which I do.
You definitely have main character energy.
Well, they have main character energy, but then I do believe that through community organizing. So let's differentiate between coalition building and community organizing. They're similar and they're different. Community organizing is like, hey, I'm part of the queer and trans Asian Pacific Islander community, or I'm part of the gay Asian community, and I'm going to organize folks to go do something together or move together, or like maybe get involved in GAPA, for example. GAPA is the GLBTQ plus Asian Pacific Alliance, formerly the Gay Asian Pacific Alliance, which I was the chair of this GAPA 2016, all these things you've heard of ad nauseum. But to build coalition, I did the QTAPI coalition, Queer and Trans Asian Pacific Islander coalition of the San Francisco Bay Area. And that's when we reached out to the Asian lesbians or the Pacific Islander queer folks, Pacifica folks, or I can't even say it, Fafine. But then when you even expand further into the Black community, the queer Black community, the queer Latino community, I think by being someone who goes out there and says, "How can I help? How can we find a common thing that we need to work on together?" It is just one person doing a lot of things, but I do think I'm hoping to inspire other people. We need more people who will be out there saying, "How can I help?" or "How can I organize my community? How can I become a coalition builder?" I think the coalition builders and the community organizers that end up in politics are often the best suited to do it because they have these skills of listening, of empathy, of feeling like what it feels like to be in your shoes and to I mean, I might not be uh, personally be impacted personally about a specific issue, but I can feel it. I can empathize. That is a skill that when you see it, you're like, oh, they get it. Versus people who are just performing and tap dancing. I call it performative is tap dancing. It was just hey, I guess, but that's what you want. That's what you get. You're getting tap dancers that are climbers, that just want to say the words that are put in front of them. I'm not naming names, but we can you can sense it. It's a different feeling. Is that right?
I think you're very spot on. Um, I think to me the difference between community organizing and coalition building, I think it's a difference between engagement and action. When you're community organizing, you're just trying to get people engaged and involved. For example, my organization, Chinatown Community Development Center, we have community organizers that organize the Community Tenants Association, and it is an incredible group. It is about 1,700 monolingual seniors across the entire city. But they bring them together for this meeting every month. We call it Super Sunday, and they talk about the pressing issues that are affecting Chinese seniors in terms of housing, like how to get into affordable housing or how to apply for this new project, and really educating people and getting them involved. And on the flip side, for coalitions, it's about bringing multiple groups of different people together to have make some kind of action. So I think about uh, in November, Prop G, which is a rental subsidy measure that passed in San Francisco. And it was really targeted towards providing assistance to extremely low income people. And because of this incredible coalition that was built, it was the only housing measure that passed in the entire state that cycle.
Wow.
Yeah.
I was also going to just add about just coalition building means just organizing across different ethnicities, different classes, different languages, abilities, different neighborhoods. That's what coalition is. It's trying to build enough people power to try to win something, whether it's fighting the school closures that almost happened last year, or also fighting the budget cuts that happened this year at the city. And one example for the budget cut coalition was the People's Budget Coalition. They all banded together to try to save as many programs as they can. So that was like one form of coalition building. There's also labor coalition building. Right now, we know, at least on the national level, there's a lot of attacks on unions, a lot of efforts to remove labor protections for people. And it's unions also working together across different cities, different states to try to push for the same thing. Um, in the union world, we've seen people for sister unions from San Francisco or from California fly out to other states to help their other union siblings out there to try to win certain fights. So that's also a type of coalition building, but also like definitely some organizing in there.
Yeah, I think so. We've talked a lot about the difference between community organizing and coalition building. I always think about like in Kamala Harris at the I think the BET Awards. It's like we're gonna do the same things we've always done: organize, mobilize, educate, advocate, rinse and repeat over and over again. And sometimes that's in community, sometimes that's cross communities or coalition building, but you're really trying to bring forth a message. You're trying to get people excited or motivated or saying, I'm gonna volunteer my weekends, all the weekends in October, all the weekends in August, September, October, to get this one candidate pushed forward or this proposition forward, probably Proposition G. Talk to other voters. So um, I think we should move to our next segment. I don't know. What do we look for in candidates, and how do we spot the climbers versus these community leaders?
I keep coming back to it, but it comes back to community. It comes back to Do you care about the struggles of people who can't afford rent? Do you care about the struggles of people who have to go a mile away from their home just to get fresh groceries? And if you don't care about that, if you haven't put in the time to learn and understand the struggles that the people that you want to represent, what the problems that they face, then it's like, why are you running? The real deal candidates, they're running because they know that the concerns of the people that they've helped along the way, those concerns will be carried with that candidate. They'll be able to amplify those concerns in City Hall. For example, I'm president of the Rose Pack Asian American Club, and in every single questionnaire we ask, have you personally visited the home of an SRO family? If you've never visited a home of an SRO family, then you have no idea of the struggles that they face, especially during COVID. How do you isolate? How do you keep your loved ones safe from this virus that is highly contagious? It really comes back to your understanding of the struggles of people that aren't like you.
Yeah, I'm going to add, I think it's people who are not just showing up for photo ops and people who are actually doing the work. And the work can look like many different things, like what Jeremy had mentioned earlier. I think it's someone who is they're always going to go back to the community no matter what, because that's who they're trying to uplift the voice of. And it's not someone who is, once they're elected in office, that they try to ignore community and do their own priorities, but it's really someone who, when they do lead, they refer back to community and asking community like, hey, what do you think about this policy? What do you think about this proposal? And really trying to just engage community in that way, because that's also why community elected you, to represent their voice. So when you're actually in office, you bring in those voices.
Yeah, for me, it's really easy to see the difference between like climbers and then folks who are really rooted in community. Um, Yeah, you could look kind of like drag, honestly. Like that's choreo, honey. That is a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 5, 6, 7, 8 step. Like it's like busting in a whole bunch of Chinese seniors because you have free dim sum and you want a photo op. Or are you actually going to their community meetings and the Super Sunday and engaging on more than one time? There's a difference there, and it's kind of like someone's tap dancing, someone's looking for the photo, other people are just there and just like real. So it's kind of a visceral feeling for me. But I do want to ask a real quick question. When do you ask, or how do you see the signs that our people are more accountable to moneyed interest versus community interest?
You look at their values and you see whether they start to bend those values. When people are first elected into office, they build a brand of sorts. Like, I'm fighting for the queer community. I'm fighting for the Chinese community. I'm fighting for immigrants. All, each supervisor, each politician will have their own kind of brand. And when you see that kind of shift a little, it's not shifting for no reason. It's shifting because there's money involved. It's because, oh, if I take this certain position, then it's gonna alienate my donors. So I'm gonna adjust it a little bit. Oh, it's okay that ICE is taking just a few people. They're just the bad ones.
I think I'm just gonna call it out right now that Daniel Lurie is not being a strong enough leader defending our sanctuary city. It's not having the moral high ground, which he could totally have right now. It was really striking to me. There's like a video of people being thrown off like cars and like violence. Like that same day, the Mayor Lurie posts about the Boo Boo is in Union Square. And I'm like, I can give two shits about Lil Boo Boo. But also like it's like you could just see it, you could see that like what does he care about? He cares about like money going to downtown and rallies, which is important. And you might not just do that on the same day, like people being violently thrown about by ICE agents. So
It is a bit tone deaf. Um, but I think just to show the mayor a little bit of grace,
Grace.
that his staff knows that if he speaks out, he then becomes a target in Trump's eyes. We don't want any of our federal funding getting cut, especially in a city as diverse and multicultural as San Francisco because of Trump's DEI initiatives. Do we then suddenly take away or dismantle all of our language immersion schools? No. So I do want to show the mayor like a little bit of grace, but like I completely am there with you.
I think it's someone who, again, goes back to the community for feedback on the decision that they make that will affect that community versus someone who leads from top down and says like, "Oh, I'm just gonna do this and I'm gonna do it without community input." So to really find leaders who will value that community input, you're elected to represent the community, so you should be able to go back to the community to get their feedback before you make major decisions that affect that community.
We were all there at the District 10 town hall
We were all there.
in the Bayview, and Mayor Lurie, I mean, you gotta give props to Mayor Lurie.
Yep.
He did do that town hall and offer to come back over and over again after all the decisions were made for the budget, but he still was like, "I'm here, I'm listening." I mean, what were your take on that?
I respect him for coming out to the Bayview. I think initially we were going to have that town hall on the jail site that was slated to be RVs, but then the plans got changed. But I do respect him for even staying extra time to hear out community. And I think there's a need for doing that more often because the community in District 10 feels like a lot of times decisions are made without having their input. So it's really important to have leadership, to be in community, to hear people's voices.
So next we're going to talk about representation and how do we make sure that the politicians are going to deliver for our communities? I think there are some folks in the Asian American community who are very organized and very loud and very well resourced, and then there are others that are not. And so how do we make sure that the most marginalized are continuing to be represented in City Hall by our elected officials, whether they voted them or not?
I think in order to get those voices represented, you have to elect people who have spent time with these groups. For the November election, I took time off work and I worked on Cheyenne Chen's campaign. She ran for supervisor on District 11. And prior to that, she had spent about a decade or more as a labor organizer for in home care workers. Ooh. So she was very well versed in the struggles that in home care workers face with pay, safety standards, with making sure that they were equipped to provide the care that they were meant to provide. By electing someone like Cheyenne, she carries that experience with her. How important it is to have union workers being the fabric of our city, making sure that fresh immigrants to this country are able to join unions and have some upward mobility, are able to save money, able to potentially buy a home, able to send their kids to school.
Leaders who are authentic, they always come back to the community and they lead by listening, they lead by taking risk, and sometimes their community's stance may not be the most popular, but if they're principled, they're willing to just do what's right.
I'm gonna follow up with that because this segment is really about the tension and embracing the tension because politics is messy.
Yeah.
You can't represent everybody. You can't represent opposing interests. And so now, like, can you tell us about a time where you saw someone or an elected or whoever kind of really say, "I'm gonna throw down because I said I represent this community."
I definitely do. It's my boss, and it happened earlier this year, and it's about the Gerald site that I referred to earlier. And so Mayor Lurie wanted to change that site into a shelter space with beds when that site was originally supposed to be an RV site because in District 10, particularly in the Bayview, we have a lot of RV homelessness out there. And so Supervisor Tremont Walton pushed back a lot because we had a community process over a year and a half to figure out what to do with that site. And on the day that it was supposed to open, Mayor Larry had announced that he was going to change the plan to something else. And so there was a lot of pushback from our office. Fortunately, we are in collaboration with the mayor's team and HSH to, again, work with community to re-envision what that site is. We definitely didn't want the community process to be forgotten and overlooked.
And can you talk more about like the coalitions that you had to build to make sure that when Shimon threw down, I mean, you were there building those coalitions, right?
So we had a mix of business owners, people who live in District 10, and also advocates of like homeless advocates too. They are all in District 10 to be able to come together and come up with an idea for the site. And the issue that we had before was that we had a lot of RVs in District 10. So how do we have a site that addresses that?
Yeah, I think this segment is all about when you're choosing your fighter for you, who is going to represent you in City Hall. You want to make sure that fighter is rooted in the community, that will throw down when it's not easy, when it's not like the most popular thing. Will maybe even stand up to a newly elected mayor. I think we should kind of close out this episode. We're changing this to the Bring the Fury segment now. Hey, where we talk about 1 minute, anything that we want to talk about. Because it's our show, like Trixie Mattel, and Hatya says we can talk whatever we want. So we're gonna give ourselves 1 minute. Who wants to go first? Does anybody want to go first?
All right, I will go first for this one. A lot of people running for office often talk about the community, but you can tell if they've never actually organized in the community because they're going to show up with like slick mailers and a lot of mailers. They're going to just show up for photo ops or when there's just a lot of people fighting about something at a hearing. And real leadership is not just knowing about what's the policy, it's also about knowing the people. It's knocking on doors in the rain, maybe translating for a budget hearing, or standing before tenants or workers before there's even a press release. And I think the city right now, we are at a turning point. We don't need more career climbers. We need people who are actually rooted, consistent, and accountable, um, not just to their donors or their consultants, but to working families who take Muni or send their kids to public school, or working families who are struggling to try to stay in the city. So if you say you love San Francisco, actually show up for the people who make it work.
That's 1 minute. That's hot. That was
Thanks.
hot.
I know I'm hot.
Uh,
Yeah, that's humanity.
we all know. Jeremy, what do you do?
Sure. So, my hot take is San Francisco is unequivocally one of the top 4 cities in the nation. So let's get the easy stuff out of the way. You got New York, LA, Chicago, the top 3 most populous cities in the nation. I think each in their own right have demonstrated their impact on the US, their influence on the country and the world writ large. So that's the top 3. Now, the fourth is a bit more debatable. You could say like DC, in Houston, Miami, but no, San Francisco. San Francisco is small but mighty. We are this little 7 by 7 mile square. We have roughly 850 ish in terms of our population, but we punch way above our belts. We got Summer of Love. We got the Beatnik movement. We got the gay rights movement. All of that right here in San Francisco.
That's time. Yeah, man. Give it up for San Francisco. Woo, 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 woo. Okay, I'm also gonna do this, and I'm gonna. Hello, my name is GC Liu, and I'm here to tell you why San Francisco is a place for dreamers and for drag queens and for artists and for people who want to disrupt the world They all live here in San Francisco. You can't go but 2 seconds and 2 minutes by bumping into a founder, bumping into an artist, bumping into a creative, bumping into somebody who has this funny idea to do change things and anything and everything. And that is what San Francisco is about. And so what I want people to be so proud of is that we are a city of dreamers. We are a city of people who just see things the way they are and say, why can't they make it like so much 10 times better or whatever? And I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna make it happen. So a lot of main character energy, people, but there's also a time and a place for folks to dream something what's possible. And that's what I really am excited to go to San Francisco for. Zion, bring the fury. We love it. Well, what an episode. Um, I think we talked a lot about representation. We talked a lot about how we're going to judge the people who are going to represent us.
Do your research. Really try to get to know the candidate, know where they come from, what they stand for, and how they're not going to, bend toward moneyed interests.
Yeah, and I guess I'll close. It's an inflection point for our country, for our state, with the governor's race, for our city, with half the board of supervisors basically up for grabs. When you listen to people talk and they say, "Hey, I want to represent you. I want to earn your vote," do they really understand and comprehend my lived experience and really have a similar lived experience? Can they empathize? Can they empathize with folks and build coalition? And do they have a track record of that? You can't agree with them on everything, but you can at least say, "Hey, that person is totally gonna fight for folks like me." Because that's the type of people we need now. I guess that's my message. Just have the vibes. And vibes good? Well, this has been me, Michael Wind,
My name is Jeremy Lee.
And my name is Natalie G.
and this was Between the Fog and the
See you
Fury.
next time.